Hello and welcome back to our IVF webinar once again. If some of you have already been here because we had a webinar at 6 p.m. UK time, you know already that we will discuss a very interesting topic tonight. And as you can see, another guest is right here with us. Mel Johnson is right here. Once again, it's great to have you back. If you don't know already, Mel has been our presenter before. I think it was more or less a year ago, so it's been a while. And I am very, very excited to have you back here. And how are you feeling, Mel? It's been a while. Great to have you back.
Lovely to be here. I'm excited to talk about the topic.
Thank you so much indeed for, again, joining us here. And of course, you will be talking about solo motherhood, emotional aspects. And if you don't know yet, Mel is actually the founder of the Stork and I, but also she's mom to Daisy. And she will discuss this topic for us because she is a single mom. And of course, she has experience and she will share her story for you as well. And I know what Mel has already prepared, so I'm really, really looking forward to this talk. And well, I know that most of you are here to also ask your questions. So remember that we will start with the presentation, but right after Mel's presentation and her story, she will share her story. It will be time for your questions, but it's not only about the questions, okay? So if there's anything that you would like to share, or if you just are here to listen or have some maybe are looking for some advice, you can use that time, and I'm sure Mel will be happy to share her experience. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Again, this is brilliant. I love those kind of topics simply because I still think that those are the topics we do not discuss enough. And yeah, what else can I say? I'm really looking forward to this webinar tonight. Thank you so much, Mel. And I guess we can start off with our presentation, right?
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. And let's go ahead.
Okay. Fab. So there's so much I could talk about tonight, but I've decided to focus on the emotional aspects of solo motherhood. But if you want to ask me questions, I'm happy to answer questions on any aspect of solo motherhood. But first of all, I'll just take us through some slides specifically on the emotional aspects. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm 42. I've got a 3-year-old, 3.5 daughter, Daisy. I had her with IVF and donor sperm at Manchester Fertility Clinic, and at that point became the solo motherhood coach, coaching other women who are considering following the same path. And I founded the Stork and I when I was pregnant with Daisy to provide support for other women who are in this situation. So the mission of the Stork and I is really to empower single women who are considering, becoming a parent on their route to parenthood. And I'm really passionate about creating a community to provide support for people at every stage of the journey, from considering to trying to being a mum. And I'm really also passionate about changing the narrative around relationship and paths to parenthood, and that's a little bit about what we'll talk about today. So if I just move on to the next slide. So what we're going to cover today is a little bit about social infertility, and I'll cover that in a second. Some of the current trends, what options we've got available to us, and then I'm going to take you through a model of the 6 stages of embracing solo motherhood, talking a little bit about comparison, which is one of my favorite topics in solo motherhood, and then around how to manage as a solo mum. So social infertility, some people love it, some people hate it. So some people say that they love it because it really explains their situation, and other people hate it because they say it somehow makes me feel like there's some sort of failure socially here. But love it or hate it, it does seem to be the term that's being used more and more to describe being unable to have a child naturally because you've got no partner, and then being of an age where you worry you might miss out on motherhood altogether. And so I've explored a little bit around, what the trends are in this, and I've included some of the statistics. They are from the UK, but it does seem like most countries are in a similar pattern of an upward trend. So you can see that in 2017, 2,279 women underwent treatment without a partner or without a male partner. In 2018, that went up to 2,368. And in 2019, they've just released the stats, and that went up to 2,497. So it's slowly increasing. In 2020, obviously, the statistics won't really be a representative. But I think now, more than ever, I get contacted every day by more and more people who are saying they're in this position. And I tell you this because I think a lot of people find it reassuring to hear that we're not the only people in this position. There's more and more people finding themselves in this position. So the number of single people is steadily increasing, and marriage rates are steadily declining. And the majority of the marriage decline is between the ages of 20 to 34, which is the exact age that women are at their most fertile. So more and more single women don't have a partner in their most fertile years. Now, for anybody who's done one of my courses, you'll know that I'm quite passionate about this area and have done quite a lot of research into why this is the case. And I think some of the findings show that there's 3 key reasons why more and more people are finding themselves in this position. And I should just say, everybody's different, and there are people who this does not apply to. They haven't tried to meet a partner, or you might be sitting thinking, well, this doesn't apply to me. But from the people that I've coached and the people I've surveyed in the Stork and I Mum tribe, a lot of people feel like this does apply to them. So basically, why are more and more people single at that age? Is because if you look back in history, our expectations were probably quite different. Our expectations now are much higher. When you think about what you're looking for in a partner, we're looking for all of these different things, like a passionate lover, a travel buddy, a best friend, somebody to share our hobbies with, all of these things. Whereas if you look way back in history, like, people were just looking for, a nice person to spend their life with. So expectations definitely increased. Choice, you used to maybe meet somebody at the local dance or on your, in the community centre, on your street. Now you can meet anybody worldwide, anytime, any place, at the touch of a button. So, and research shows that the more choice people have, the less likely they are to make a choice. And that's men and women. So it's just, in general, people are less likely to make a choice if they've got the more choice they have. And then the last thing is resources. Back in history, a woman needed to get married to be able to leave her family home. Now, of course, we have our own careers, we have our own money, we have our own houses, we're independent. So people don't need to get married. So then meeting a partner has to be a positive addition. It's not something that is essential. So those are the sort of 3 key reasons why more and more women are finding themselves single and at an age where potentially they're starting to look at wanting to have children. And again, I just say this because I think a lot of people find it a little bit reassuring to understand, because I know people speak to me to say, I feel like a failure. I feel like I don't know why I'm the only person in the world. That's certainly how I felt at the time. I'm the only person in the world who doesn't seem to be able to meet the right person. But actually, more and more, we're seeing that this is becoming much more common. So the way that I talk about it is, really, you've got 5 options if you're in this situation. So the first option is to do nothing. But as I always say, if you're a control freak like me, doing nothing doesn't feel like a great position to be in. The second thing is what I like to call relentlessly pursue a relationship. So this is, if you feel like you want to have a baby with a partner, can you hand on heart tell yourself that you have done everything you possibly can to meet somebody. Because what happens when I coach people is they say, but I would prefer to do this in a relationship. And then I say, but what are you doing to find a relationship? And really not much action is being taken to find a relationship. Now, if you go down this path, you're going to spend money on treatment, which, you know, it's not cheap. If you really want to do this in a relationship, are you investing in meeting someone? Are you using a matchmaker? Are you on the dating websites? Are you, doing whatever you can in your power? Have you got a relationship coach? Or really throwing yourself into meeting a partner? You can look at alternative routes to parenthood. So you could consider fostering, adoption, becoming a step parent later on if you meet people with children, etc. Accepting a life without children. So there's lots of people and resources who are really inspiring that talk about how to start coming to terms with a life without children and defining what your life will look like instead. Or what we're going to talk about, solo motherhood, using donor conception. And sometimes just seeing those choices in front of you, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but seeing them really clearly put in front of you just makes it a little bit easier to think, okay, well, these are my options. So which one is like a no, definitely not, and which ones do I think, okay, I could I could consider that could be a path that I might want to take. And then a disclaimer, and I put this in all the things, I'm not like a salesperson for solo motherhood. So I certainly don't think, yay, we don't need men anyway, let's all just go out and do it on our own. I definitely am not in that camp. And I don't think solo motherhood is for everybody. I think there's some people that it might not be right for. But what I am passionate about is empowering women with all the information to make the best choice for them, to understand all their options and make the most informed choice. So I always just want to put that caveat in, because I don't want people to think that I'm like a saleswoman for solo motherhood. So talking about the emotional aspects of solo motherhood, one of the things that I go through in the coaching course I run is the 6 stages of embracing solo motherhood. And depending where you are in the process, some of these stages may resonate with you. So it can start off with denial, which quite often looks like blind faith. That's certainly what I had. I was like, I'm bound to meet someone. I was dating like crazy. It's got to happen. Just give me 6 more months and I'm bound to meet someone. And then that turned into despair when time after time I didn't meet someone. Everyone else, it felt like, was meeting someone. And I started to panic. I started to think, I'm running out of time. I'm getting older. My biological clock. Why can't I meet someone? What's wrong with me? Or some of the common things lots of people feel, I definitely felt like. And that can really then lead to just overwhelm and detachment. So like, I'm going to miss out. What shall I do? Just feeling a little bit helpless. And then that turns round into dialogue. So you start thinking, okay, this is the situation I'm in. What are my options? Who can I speak to? Where can I get more information? What can I do to sort of move forward on this? And then you can start looking at the options, exploring, looking at what's right for you to try to make a decision. Now, lots of people come to me when they've made a decision, but maybe it's a somewhat reluctant decision. And what I'm absolutely passionate about is moving people. Well, first of all, helping people make the right decision for them, whether that be solo motherhood or whether it be something different. And secondly, when you've made that decision, really embracing it, owning it, feeling proud of it, empowered, and having all the actions to take you forward, to really, what I like to call, thriving at solo motherhood, or at least at working through the process. So you might feel like some of these you're in, or you've gone through, or some of these things you think, yes, I remember feeling like that. And what I say is you absolutely can get up into that top level, if you're not already, where you feel really proud and excited to tell people this is what you're doing, and you feel really excited to have made a decision. And it's not like a reluctant, okay, well, I'm going to have to do this decision, which really changes the feeling. Okay, so the classic fairy tale that if you're a similar age to me, we grew up with is to meet a partner, get married, and have children. Now, more and more lately, maybe the get married piece, you can take it or leave it a bit. That's changed a little bit, but I think we all still grew up with the fairy tale that it's meet a partner, get married, have children, all those fairy tales of happily ever after. The prince comes to save us. It's the only way to find happiness. And because that's what we grew up around with, subconsciously, we won't have even known it. No, we won't have known it, but so many messages were coming to us to say success is meeting a partner and living happily ever after. That's what will make us happy. And therefore, that's gone into our subconscious and created what we call a life script, which is what we presume will happen in our life, what we hope will happen in our life, what we expect to happen. And so, many people, including myself, and many people I speak to, many people I've coached, have a life script where they absolutely just believed that they would meet someone, get married, and have children. I believed that it would take very little effort on my part. I never doubted it. I just presumed it would happen until I split up with my ex-partner at 29. That was the first time I was like, oh, maybe this, gosh, actually, now I'm worried, will this definitely happen? So one of the things that we have to work through is changing this life script. So we will have a very fixed way of thinking about what will happen in our life. It's reinforced by all the people around us, by the media, by our parents, by the books we read, by the films we watch. And it's what we presume will happen, and it's deeply embedded in us without us really even realizing. And it really makes us think this is the way to become a parent. This is the best way. This is the way that we'll be happiest. And if we take a look at some of the evidence, you can see I have not got good taste in films, so maybe you're not watching all of these films, but so many films portray happily ever after, even if the whole film is about not really getting with the guy. At the end, the happily ever after is meeting the partner and then going on to have children. So it's no wonder that that's what we think should happen and what we're looking for. And I'm not saying that that is a bad thing, by the way, either. Like, if you've got people that you know who've met amazing partners and are living an amazing life, absolutely great. But it's what we've been brought up thinking is the only way for this to be, for us to be happy. So I surveyed the people in the Stork and I Mum Tribe community, and 95% of them said that they presumed that they would have a baby with a partner, and only 5% said that they would choose donor conception from the beginning. So there are people who never saw themselves with a partner, but the vast majority thought that they would do this with a partner. Then out of that 95%, you have all sorts of different, like, people who are really struggling to let go, to people who are like, oh, okay, well, then I'll do it solo. So, and everywhere in between. But you can see the vast majority thought that they would start off having a baby with a partner. So what I see as the biggest element of solo motherhood and the emotional aspect of it is comparison. This, for me, is the biggest game changer on the people who are really thriving and the people who are struggling. And I know some super amazing women who are successful, confident, independent, really together women who are struggling because they cannot let go of the comparison. And so for me, this is one of the biggest important topics to nail if you're going into this decision to become a solo parent. And when I talk about comparison, I talk about some of the main things that we tend to compare ourselves with. This is from my personal experience and also from the people I've coached. So many people compare themselves to people with partners, or we can compare ourselves with someone further ahead on the journey. I've heard people say, oh, but they seem happier about it. I've got all these worries. Why can I not be as happy as that person? They've embraced it more. Pregnancy news, of course, is a really key trigger for people, hearing people with pregnancy announcements. Seeing people who've got children, so comparing yourself to people who've already got children when you haven't, or who've got 2 children if you've only got 1. And then the big one, the really big one, is comparing yourself with your fantasy life. So how you thought it was going to be. So I have a group of solo mum friends, and we often say, you know, in our fantasy life, if we had a partner, this would be easier, that would be easier, this would be better. But we all laugh, saying, probably that's an absolute lie, a fantasy. And maybe some things would be better, maybe some things would be harder, but we don't know because it's a fantasy. So no good comes out of spending loads of time comparing to what anyone else is doing. The people I see successful, including myself, who I feel really happy with my decision and, you know, being a solo parent, is really what Lucy Sheridan, the comparison coach who I love, says: staying in your lane. So really only focusing on what you want, what's important to you, and not worrying and wasting energy about what anyone else is doing. And also remembering that you only see a snippet of other people's reality, and often it's a positive snippet because it's what they want to share with you or show you. And we all know people who, when we really get under it, their reality is not the fairy tale that we might imagine. And so there's so much work we can do on trying to stop comparison and really embracing doing this solo, and all of the benefits and the amazing things that come with that, and really embracing the journey doing it solo, you know, really trying to take in the moments of that journey, rather than always looking to the future about, you know, when this happens or when that happens. And so really we can become so focused on what everyone else is doing, we lose track of what's important to us. And what I talk about is having, if you have a bucket of energy, all of your energy you want to put on moving forward, on making your life as amazing as it can be. And any energy that leaks out of that bucket, worrying about other people and comparing yourself to other people or what might have been, or your your fantasy life, takes you backwards or keeps you where you are, doesn't make you progress forward. And I've got some people who say, when I talk about this to them, they're like, you're right, I've actually been in the same place for 2 years because I'm so focused on what other people are doing and that I'm behind or I'm missing out or mine's not as good, that I haven't put any of my energy in going forward and moving to what I want to do. So really trying to focus on what's important to you and all of your energy on getting there, rather than worrying about what other people are doing, would be my absolute top tip advice for how to, really thrive in this situation. And then my favourite quote, just to end that input, is just because things could have been different doesn't mean that they would have been better. So many of us have, our first thought is to think, oh, but if it would have been that way, usually the way that we first presume things would be, and we struggle to let go of that it would be better. But actually, we don't know that. We didn't live that version. So all we can do is really embrace the version that we're living now and make that the best that it can be, and not worry about what would have happened if it would have been different, because it wasn't different, it's as it is now. And so that's my advice from an emotional point of view of embracing solo motherhood. And then, if anyone wants to talk more about any of the emotional aspects or the practical aspects, we cover both in my group coaching course, Choosing Solo. So that is where I cover all of this in a lot more detail. So for anyone who is interested in learning more, that's where you can find me, at the Stork and I. So that is the content that I wanted to cover, and then I thought we could spend the rest of the time answering any questions you have about any of the emotional aspects that I've covered, or anything at all that you want to ask me about my journey, or any of the more practical questions about becoming a solo mum.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mel. I loved your enthusiasm and I loved your energy for sure. You are a great supporter, that's for sure. And if you followed Mel on Instagram or anything, you would see that she's really passionate about this, and I see and I feel that you speak from the heart, and this is amazing to see. Thank you so much, Mel. This is important to talk about it. And well, as you can see, lots and lots of questions are actually coming up, longer questions for you as well, so let's get to those straight away. Okay, so let's have a look. Julie has added, interested in your thoughts on support networks. I'm in the ownership stage and going through IVF, but I have a constant worry about a support system. If this happens for me, parents no longer here and siblings far away. Anything you can advise?
I can. So I know that I am in a very fortunate position that I have my parents here, and I've just moved close to, to be closer with them. And, so I do know that I talk from a very privileged position from that point of view. However, when I first had Daisy, I moved to Manchester from Budapest and didn't know anybody. So I moved to a completely new area and was an hour away from my parents, which is, still I had them close by. But my main mission was to create a support network. And there's a couple of things I would say. So you absolutely can build it from scratch. It is easier, of course, if you've got some close people to you nearby who can really help. But I definitely know people who didn't have that. So what I did, there's a number of things. First of all, it's being really planned. So if you look at my calendar, I've got my calendar up on the wall, and it's got the next, someone was saying to me, when can we meet up? And I was like, sometime in August, because I literally plan what I'm going to do, who I'm going to see in advance, so that I'm always having friends staying here, I'm going to friends, or having family around, or whatever it might be, we went trampolining or whatever it might be, so that for me personally, I don't like spending lots of time without any adult company. It's important for me to have adult company. And so I would say antenatal class, you can meet people. Don't rule it out just because you would be going on your own. I think it's super useful to meet people there. On the Facebook page, the Stork and I Mum Tribe Facebook group, we have lots of regional WhatsApp groups, and I personally have made loads of solo mum friends from them, and I know lots of other people have. And so other solo mums can be such a great support because they really just get it. They know exactly what you're going through. I've made friends at nursery. I made a friend from the app. So you've got Mush and Frollo and Peanut and those mum apps. So honestly, I treated it almost like a job to build up my support network. So I was like, okay, I'm tired. Maybe I just can't be bothered to do this. No, I'm going to really go all out and in the beginning build as big and good a support network as I possibly can. And I put myself out there. So I was like, okay, if anybody needs me to babysit, if anyone needs me to do the nursery pickup, I don't work Mondays. So if anyone needs me to look after their kids on Mondays, and making that first move helped people then sort of reciprocate that to me a little bit. So I would say just hunt out all the things that you can do to meet other people, and you can build a good support network. I am someone's emergency contact at my daughter's old nursery, not anymore, but when I was there, she put me down as her emergency contact because and we only met, when Daisy started nursery, but because I had said, if any time, if you need me to pick your daughter up, etc. So it's definitely possible to build it from scratch, and hopefully you've got some people that are already part of that. I hope that answers the question.
Amazing. No doubt here. Thank you so much, Julie, for sharing and, of course, for your amazing advice here. Okay, let's have a look.
Internet connection, or
I can hear you, Mel.
I'm
Can
going
you
to
hear
carry
me?
on answering the questions and hope that you can hear me.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Mel?
I'm interested in managing the grief of failed treatment as a trying to be solo mum. Currently, 2-week wait for 4th frozen embryo transfer after 3 failed rounds. Those in my life who understand the challenges of IVF only know what this is like with a partner. Can't really relate to the experience of going through it alone and how lonely and isolating it can be. It's really difficult for me. Oh, hey, Caroline.
I'm right here. It's all okay.
So I was just answering this second question about feeling lonely and isolated as going through fertility treatment on your own. I think that what I would say about that is try to connect with other people who are more in that similar position. So I was incredibly lucky when I went through fertility treatment because on my second frozen embryo transfer was when I had a positive pregnancy test. So have to be honest to say, like, I didn't go through rounds and rounds of failed treatment, so haven't got that first-hand experience of it. So I think there's two things I would say. One thing is connect with other people who are in a more similar position. So see if there are any other solo mums on the, the Stork and I Mum Tribe, or any other Facebook group that you might be on, who you can connect with, particularly if they're local and we can now meet up. But I just find like other solo mums really get it because they've been in exactly that situation. I think the other thing is trying to let people in, even if they're in a slightly different situation. So that I know that sometimes I've had the tendency to be like, they don't understand because they're in a different situation to me. But at the same time, I haven't really tried to help them understand. And so seeing if you can let people in who could be there for you, even if they haven't experienced the same thing directly, I think would be the two things that I can suggest, because it is tough. It is tough, and you need people to support you. And if it's not a partner, it's finding who can be there to support you.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. I hope you can see me and hear me now. Well, yeah. Okay, good. So we had a little bit of an issue, but it's all good. All right. As you can see, more questions are coming in. Let's have a look. Okay. I'd like to hear about the emotional aspects of choosing an unknown donor. I feel confident about the logistics, finances, support network, etc., but I'm getting stuck at choosing a donor. To put it crudely, it feels really weird, and I don't know how to get comfortable with not knowing them.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's something that you have to get your head around. The way that I feel about it is that you can, for anybody who's ever internet dated, I used to internet date and think, be absolutely an optimist and think, oh, this one seems really good. I really have got a good feeling about this one. But then when I met them, think, oh, okay, that's not okay. Back to the drawing board. And with choosing a donor, we won't get to know them. And so for me, it's about letting go of the control that you can. We won't ever, or not ever, but we won't, when we're choosing, get to meet them. And so we won't be able to find out about them. Therefore, we have to accept the information that we're presented, the best choice we can make from that, and try to let go of the control of needing to know every single thing. And the advice that I always give, and what I used for myself is, what would my future child want me to choose on? And have I got a good explanation for them? So when I'm saying to them, this is why I chose this donor, am I really confident with my choice of what might be important for them? And it's different for everybody. Some people say, they chose ones that are closer in proximity, so if they ever want to meet, they potentially could. Some say the letter they wrote really was meaningful to them, or some say we want physical characteristics, so you look more like the rest of the family because the physical characteristics are the same, or whatever the reason might be. It's personal to you, but that you feel like you can really explain it well to your child. So it's just about trying to let go of the control and knowing that you can only choose based on the information you've got, would be my advice on it.
Brilliant again. Thank you so much. I love how you add everything right here, sharing, and it's already brilliant session for sure. Let's have a look. One other one is right here. How do people get treated differently in society? That can be challenging, and how best to deal with it?
So I think for me, there's definitely still a presumption that it is better to be in a couple. So society favours people in couples for different reasons, and I think that it's our role to constantly challenge that in a positive way by educating people and making people think, oh yeah, like I hadn't thought of that. Because I have to say, when I first started doing podcasts, people would ask me, do you feel like influenced by society? And I was like, oh no, I don't think it's society. It was just me feeling pressure because of my biological clock. But when I did more research about it, I was like, oh my goodness, it's absolutely by society. Because and absolutely well-meaning friends saying, they're first thinking, oh, but you'll definitely meet someone, oh, but as if that is the way that it should be, not supporting me by saying, oh, well, you've got this, powerful decision that you could do it on your own, and that could be equally positive. So for me, it's about learning more ourselves, reading more, understanding more, becoming educated on, how this has evolved over time, how people are treated, and how we can challenge that and educate people. And then when you've got a child, I had an example today. So I picked Daisy up from nursery today, and her teacher, she's only a couple of months started a new nursery. This would never have happened at her last nursery. And her new teacher came out and said, oh, she's made a Father's Day card. And there's different ways that you could handle that. But I just said, oh, but Daisy, you've not got a daddy, have you? And she said, no, I've not got a daddy. I made the card for Granny, Grandad, Mick, and Joni. Joni's her friend, Mick's my dad's friend who's been helping us in the house, and my granddad, my dad, and my mum. And she so confidently, because I didn't make a fuss. I just said, oh no, that's not our situation, but was calm about it and casual and just corrected. So I think it's about just educating people in a really positive way, not blaming people, because some people just don't know, they don't understand. So education, I would say, and challenging it, and maybe presenting people with a better alternative. So, I said to her, next time, just ask me who you want me to make the card to. She can give this to her granddad. So, better communication and dialogue about it, I would say as well. I hope that's answered the question.
Thank you so much. That sounds definitely incredible, to put it that way. Yeah, very interesting, Mel. Thank you so much. Okay, let's have a look. Beth has added here, Me too. I have finally chosen one. I didn't go in the way I thought it would at all. A very interesting process. I found that my main concern when choosing was how the potential child would feel learning about the donor profile rather than any characteristics that I did or didn't want in a potential child, which interested me greatly. And sorry, there is a follow up. Let me put it here. Scared I won't get pregnant until samples from that donor run out, though, and I'll have to do it all over again.
Yeah, and I think that you can. There is a possibility to depending on which clinic you're using, I think there is a possibility to reserve them. So if you really want to make sure that you've got enough of one particular donor, then you can reserve it. But I hear lots of people who say, the choosing a donor is really difficult when you're choosing it, but then when you've chosen it, like I asked a group of solo mums recently, what the profession of their donor was for something that we were doing. And so many of them was like, oh, I need to go and have a look at the paperwork. I can't remember. Whereas at the time, it felt like the most important decision. And, you were poring over the information and choosing. And actually, more than half of people couldn't remember the profession of the donor that they chose. So it shows how the importance of it is much greater when you're making the decision than it seems afterwards. So I think that's something interesting to bear in mind as well. And I really like what you said as well, just thinking about how a future a child would feel about it, I think is an important thing to think about as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much indeed. And again, next question, a bit of a longer story here as well. I'm 46 and this is my second round of IVF. My test for my last one was negative, and for that reason, I decided to try my egg again because my eggs were fertilized. My doctor did warn me not to and to go for donor egg and sperm. I'm away in Greece, and this time around, I'm finding it difficult to focus. I'm more emotional. It's a lonely place as none of my friends understands. I do have a solo group, and I've bonded with a couple of ladies who are now pregnant, and just wondered if I need to get some therapy and how do I go about that?
Yeah, so what I would suggest if you were feeling like that is there is Beaker, the British in what does it stand for? The official counselling service, and there are a number of people. If you go on the Beaker website, who are absolutely specialist in supporting people going through infertility, and so that's one way where you can find a fertility counsellor who day in, day out will be dealing with this. The other people that I work with are called Parenthood in Mind. You can find them on Instagram, and they are really used to speaking to solo mums who are going through this and who are finding it really challenging. And you complete a form with them and tell them specifically like what you're struggling with, and then they match you to somebody who is best to talk you through that. So I am personally a massive fan of having some counselling and to just have somebody there to talk you through it and to work through any issues you're having. So yeah, Parenthood in Mind or Beaker. I think it's the British Institute of Fertility Counsellors. And the other thing you can do, if you felt comfortable, on the Stork and I Mum Tribe Facebook group, you can ask people, because there's a really mixed opinion on who's had a great counselling session and who's had an average one, and then you could get recommendations. Most people will now do it remotely, so you can do it anywhere. So you could also look for a recommendation of anyone who said that they've really found a good counsellor in this area. So I would definitely recommend it.
Thank you so much again, of course, for sharing, but also Mel for your advice here. More questions are coming in, so let's have a look. Maria has added, I read somewhere that women decided to go solo actually experienced first a sort of a grief because they didn't manage to have a child in the traditional way. Anything you can add?
Yeah, so I totally agree. That's what a lot of my coaching clients say, that they feel like they're grieving for the way that they thought that they would have a child. And for me, this really goes back to the life script. So understanding how deeply ingrained in us it was of how we presumed that we would have a child can make it very difficult to let go of that idea. And the more work you can do on letting go of that idea and embracing a different way that can be equally as positive, can help you move through that grief. And I think that we always, you know, our mind makes us see what we want to see. So if you think it's going to be worse doing it in a different way, you will look for every bit of evidence that reaffirms to us that it will be worse. If you think that you can have an equally as positive experience, you will look for all the evidence that shows that it will be an equally positive experience. And so the more work you can do, and there isn't a magic wand, it isn't like, oh, okay, good, I'm sorted now, I'm happy on this path. It's like it's been ingrained in us over a number of years, over our whole lifetime. So you have to undo that, you know, pattern that's been ingrained and rewrite it with a different pattern. And it's not something that changes overnight, it's something that changes over a period of time as you continue to surround yourself by positive people, role models who've done this and are speaking highly about it, but balanced, because there's some people who are like skipping through poppy fields, which isn't really a balanced view of it. It's hard as well. So yeah, surrounding yourself by like a diverse group of people who are all in different situations. If you just have couple friends in the nuclear family and you're the only person in a different situation, it is harder from a comparison point of view because you feel like everyone's doing it one way and you're doing it another way. If you have single friends, older friends, younger friends, gay friends, friends who don't want children, friends who've got like all different scenarios, then it makes your reality a lot easier because you don't feel like you're just the only one who's doing something different. Everyone's in different situations. So I also really recommend trying to diversify your friendship group. But yes, I've spoken to a lot of people, myself included, who feel like it took me a long time to come to terms with, I'm not going to do this in the way I thought it. I felt like I'd failed because that's what I wanted to do. I thought it would be better. But I can really honestly tell you, the way that I'm doing it is great. And I have lots of support and people around me. And yeah, once you've worked through it, you can really start embracing a different way of doing it, would be my view on it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And there, thank you from Maria for you. Thank you ever so much for the insights. It all makes so much sense. Excellent. Thank you so much. Indeed. And let's have a look. One more. I completely resonate with those stages of emotion frames of mind you mentioned in the process of moving towards solo motherhood, and usually now feel quite happy and empowered about it. Luckily, since I'm 37 weeks pregnant, the baby was donated embryo, but sometimes I find others respond to my situation in an almost pitifying way, which can temporarily send me back to an earlier emotional stage. I guess it's about staying in your own lane. First of all, congrats.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it is about staying in your own lane. I also think it's back a little bit to what I was saying about educating people because, I'm just very honest with people saying, oh, it sounds like you're pitying me. You don't have to pity me. I'm like super happy with my situation. Everything's good. So I think I also am an advocate of calling it out if you feel like people are pitying you, and just explaining to them you absolutely don't need pity. You're exactly where you want to be. You've made the decision for you, and it's the right decision for you. So I would, because that's again about changing society, to change people's initial reactions like, oh, they're doing it on their own. Like, yeah, we are, and it's, there's things that are better about that. There's things that might be tougher, but don't have pity for me. I don't need pity, in a lovely way, in a very nice, supportive, oh, you don't need to pity me type way. So yeah, almost like call them out on it rather than them sending you back. You sort of say to them, no, you've got it wrong. And what I would say is, genuinely, when I speak to other solo mum friends, we have a lot of pity for some people who are doing this in a partnership. And I'm very balanced about it. People doing it in a partnership, there are some things that are amazing, there are some things that are better, there's some things that are worse. It's just different. But equally, we could show them pity because there's stuff that they perhaps have to go through that we wouldn't need to go through, that can be more challenging. So I think it's always good to see it in that way as well. Every different situation has the things that are harder and the things that are easier, would be my advice.
Amazing. Again, thank you so much, of course. That makes perfect sense, what you have just said. Thank you indeed. And let's have a look. IVF appears to be a very medically intense procedure. Did you look into any other options to have a child? Example, sperm donation, co-parenting, adoption. How was your experience of IVF?
Yeah, so I did originally look into co-parenting. So I don't speak about this hugely publicly because I don't think it's fair on the friend that I looked into it with. But I have a gay friend who we had some, quite serious conversations about, is this something that we could do together? As we worked through that, it became very clear that our ideas about how that would work were very different. And if at the very beginning, when you're having the discussions, you feel like you're on a different page, I can only imagine that as a baby comes onto the scene, it would get a lot harder. And so I made the decision that I thought that this was going to be challenging. I have to say, maybe that's a selfish decision because I was thinking it would be challenging for me. So, yeah, I did consider it, but I felt like we were on different pages about how we would want that relationship to work, and I thought that would be difficult. And if it's difficult for me, obviously that would impact the child anyway, because because if you're going through a hard time, that would impact your child. I did look into IUI, so rather than going straight to IVF, having IUI. But my personal situation was that I was in Budapest and I was having to fly into Manchester for treatment because in Budapest at that time they didn't treat single women. And because I was flying in, it was just easy. I could control the process a lot more doing IVF than IUI. So I just decided to also give myself the best possible chance statistically of having a baby, first time or sooner, than because the percentage likelihood is better with IVF. And I did consider adoption, and actually isn't something that I've ruled out for the future because I would like a sibling for Daisy or a second child. So I just decided that I would really like to, go through the pregnancy process and have my own biological child. But adoption is something that I do still consider and haven't ruled out. So yeah, I think I looked at all the options and then just decided personally for me and my circumstances, IVF was the best one for me. And my experience of IVF, I had a very straightforward experience. I was very lucky. I realised that I had 18 eggs that turned into 3 embryos, and the first embryo was a chemical pregnancy. So I got a very faint line that got fainter and didn't result in a positive pregnancy test. And the second embryo transfer was Daisy. So yes, it's invasive. There's lots of drugs. There's lots of injecting yourself with a needle, but it wasn't, it wasn't a horrific process for me. But I speak to a lot of people who have found it harder. Different people react in different ways, and obviously, I know that I'm lucky that it happened quite quickly for me. Some people, as we can see from some of the questions, have gone through quite an emotional roller coaster of not only having to decide to do this on your own, but then also having the fertility process not be straightforward, and having a lot of disappointment, and having a long journey. So yeah, lots of different experiences depending on who you speak to.
That is true, indeed, of course. And we've seen so many stories already. So, of course, that is how it works. Thank you also again for sharing. And next question, interesting one for sure as well. Have you ever came across a solo mom who regretted her choice?
So I have come across solo mums who regret their choice, if momentarily, but I personally, I've never met anybody who says that they wish they hadn't done it. I wonder that there possibly are people out there. Maybe people aren't brave enough to say it if that's how they feel, for fear of being judged. I personally haven't met anyone who said they regretted their choice. I would say that I um, come across two camps of people. The people who I explained before, who can't let go of the idea of how they thought they would do it, and they're full of regret still that they weren't able to do it in a partnership. So they even though they have maybe a 3, 4, 5 year old, are still wishing that they've been able to do it in the more traditional way. But I haven't, no one's ever said to me that they regretted having a child. And for me, that is, like I say, the biggest factor on um, how well you get on, if you can let go of that, how you thought it might be, and embrace how it is. So no, the short answer is no, I haven't, but that doesn't mean they don't exist, just I haven't met them.
That is great to hear then, of course. Thank you so much. And thank you for the interesting question, indeed. Right. Next one is also here. Hannah has added, I'm currently 32 weeks pregnant and have learned that people who are not so close to me, example, neighbors, feel very, very comfortable asking me casually who the father is. I'm proud of my journey and very happy to become single mom, right? But I have no idea what to answer. I think it's a private matter and also my child's story and not mine to share to everyone. Any advice how to cope with nosy people? I don't want to come across as someone who is ashamed of their situation.
Yeah, we cover this actually in the course that I run. So I I'm an oversharer. So I just probably have shared a lot of the information, but totally understand that it might be something that you want to keep private, and also totally agree that there's some of that information that is for your child. And my advice is to say that. So I always liken it to, if one of our friends gets pregnant, we don't ask them what position they were having sex in when they conceived. At the same time, they're not then automatically entitled to ask us the ins and outs of conception. So what I always say is that you can just use like one very simple sentence that says, actually, that's something I prefer to keep private. And so if you can confidently say that's something I prefer to keep private, or that's something that I'd like to keep private for my child, and just explain that you think that that's for the child. And I think I sort of go back a little bit again to education. So, people don't necessarily, it might be the first time they've ever heard of someone doing this. I think usually people's intention is curiosity, maybe some sort of like spilling into nosiness. But for me, it's telling them as much as you're comfortable telling them with, and then saying, I'd actually prefer to keep the rest private. And bearing in mind that they will have also kept things private about their conception, so that you're not doing anything different to what somebody in a couple would potentially be doing either. That would be my advice on it.
Excellent. Thank you so much indeed again for that advice. And now it might be our final question for tonight. But of course, if there's anything else you would like to add, go ahead, type this in. But if not, remember that you can always get in touch with Mel, and I'm sure she'll be more than happy to support you, help you out, and advise. And let's have a look, okay? Sylvia has added one more question. Very interesting topic. I found the presentation very useful, gave me more confidence about going through IVF with double donation. I was struggling about making such an important decision. I am concerned about the way people judge me. How to cope with this feeling?
Yeah, so what I find is that so many people worry about what other people are going to think about them and how they're going to judge them. But actually, often that's our own internal judgment of ourselves more than other people's judgment. And so many people I speak to say they worried about what people would say. But then when they asked those people about what they thought, the response was actually a lot more positive. So I think we spend a lot more time worrying about what people think than the reality of what people think. What I would say is really, really come to terms with real confidence about your decision, and that will help you and it will come across when you're talking to people. If people get an element of doubt from you and they see any elements of doubt, I do think that also creates more doubt for them. If they see that you are really thought through on it, that you're really proud of your decision, that you're really confident about your decision, I think that that's also what they take from it. So I personally always recommend, I should be on commission, Susan Gollenbach's book, We Are Family. And that really explains so much research on this. And I think if you read that and understand the research behind it, and listen to podcasts and read up on things, hear other people's stories, and really feel confident about the decision, then you'll be less concerned what other people think, because you'll be really confident yourself, and you'll also be able to explain things. So if anyone asks you any questions, or you feel like they have got any judgment, you can say, actually, I've thought that through, or I've researched that, or this is the facts on that, and you can educate people. So yeah, I would look at how you can get confident yourself with it, and then I think that comes across, and it's easier not to feel judged by others then. I hope that answers the question.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And let's have a look. Okay, someone is typing. So I just want to see whether it's another question or there is a thank you. Okay, there is a comment. So I want you to see. Thank you, Mel. Your podcast helped me make this decision after being stuck with my thoughts for years. I was super lucky and got pregnant in the end and couldn't be happier. I've stopped comparing my situation with others and feel that things are exactly the way they are supposed to be.
I actually felt like I was filling up when I was reading that. That was lovely.
That is great to hear for sure. Hannah, we are so happy for you, and that is amazing. Thank you so much indeed. And I guess we will be finishing for tonight. Mel, you've been brilliant, and I love how enthusiastic you are all about this. And you make it feel so simple. Like you say it that it sounds so simple, but of course I know that that can be still tough. And thank you so much for joining us, because I love how it looks like today. It's like a back and forth kind of way, and you are part of it. So thank you, everyone, for your not only questions, but really for sharing. Yeah, because we are here to support you. And I feel amazed that you are sharing. And I'm sure that Mel feels the same way. So Mel, before we finish, of course, you can see there are plenty of comments coming up your way. So anything else you would like to add?
No, brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving me the feedback. It's really great to hear that it's helpful, and I really appreciate that everyone's listening to the podcast. So yeah, just lovely to be able to have the opportunity to chat to you. Thank you for all of the questions. And yeah, get in touch with me if you have any other questions. The Stork and I on Instagram is probably the easiest way to do that.
Yeah, and if you haven't done it, go ahead and do it, because as you can see, it's definitely amazing. I love that we are able to provide these topics, and we have this group of people that just find it very useful, and it's amazing. That's for sure. Again, someone is typing. I just want to have a look and see. It's probably another thank you, but let's make sure so we will not miss any questions. And it's been definitely brilliant to have you here. And just so you know, of course, this has been recorded. So if anyone had to leave or something like that, don't worry. You will have a chance to watch the webinar tomorrow. It will be available on our website, but also on our YouTube channel. Again, someone is typing, so let's give it a second. I still think we can do it. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for another thank you here. Okay, thank you. And as I've mentioned, let me just show you that if you go to myivfences.com, you will be able to find this webinar. But I also want to mention that after this webinar, you will be redirected to Mel's profile on our site. So you can have a look at her previous webinar with us as well. Maybe you will find it useful. And plus, as Mel has added, if you wish to ask anything else, just go ahead and get in touch with her on Instagram, and she'll be happy to assist, right? Mel?
One more thing I just wanted to say, for any pregnant solo mums, I've actually got Preparing to Thrive, which is a course in July for pregnant solo mums, where we get together a group of pregnant solo mums to talk this through. So yeah, anyone that fancies that, you can find it on my website. There's a few spaces left. So yeah. Thank you very much.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much indeed. And I do hope we will have another webinar very soon with you, Mel. Thank you so much indeed. Everyone, thank you for joining. Have a wonderful evening. And as you know, we will be back here at 8 p.m. UK time. Tomorrow, we will discuss coping with miscarriage. So if this is something that you might find useful, just join us. We will be back with Mandy Rodriguez, and she's a psychologist, and I'm sure she'll be happy to help you out with some of your questions as well. So hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.